George Kilpatrick, Inspiration for the Nation, celebrating people we feel good about. So, we want to highlight some folks in our community that you may not know, but they're doing some fabulous things. And we want to find out how they got to be where they are. It is Black History Month. It's soon to be Women's History Month. And so we're pleased to be joined by Dr. Tanya Paul. She's with Auburn OB-GYN, part of Auburn Community Hospital. And she's been a physician in the area for about 15, 20 years or so. And
Correct.
Plus?
I know about that.
Yeah, about that. Yeah. And so we wanted to learn a little bit about how did she get to be where she is? And what are the lessons for some of you who might be thinking about a career in medicine? And what does it take and how did you do it? So let's start from the beginning, Dr. Paul. You grew up in the big city of New York. Tell us where you grew up in New York.
So I was born and raised in Queens, New York. Went to a small elementary school, small high school in Astoria. Graduated, and undergrad was at Hampton University, the prestigious Hampton University.
Go ahead and say the real HU so I can fight with you.
The real HU.
Howard University, but that's okay.
I was the first in my family to not go to college, but complete college. My journey into being a doctor started at a very young age. I knew I wanted to be a doctor at age 3.
Age 3?
Correct. So the only thing I wanted to be other than a doctor was a ballerina. And the only reason is because I thought the tutus were gorgeous. And when I found out you couldn't wear them all the time, that was out.
That was the end of that. Okay.
So that was the end of that. So from then on, I wanted to be a doctor. I just didn't know what type. At a young age, I lost 2 of my grandparents to cancer really quickly, 3 months apart. And from then on, I thought, well, why don't I just cure cancer? I could do that. And when I say young age, and then I proceeded on to 5th or 6th grade, I'm not sure. And then a friend of mine got hit in the eye with a baseball bat, not on purpose. We were playing baseball and she had glasses on, and she got hit in the eye, glass cut up her eye, and I was just enamored. I just thought it was so amazing. And from then on, I'm like, well, maybe I'll cure cancer, but I think I'm really interested in the eye. I'm just interested. I want to be an ophthalmologist. That's what I want to do. And so throughout high school, everything was surrounded through the eye. And throughout college at Hampton, my last year I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship from the Environmental Protection Agency, where I studied this organism that attacks the eye. And that's what I knew. That's what I was going to do. That's it, 100%.
All right, so hold on. Before you continue, though, let me go back a little bit, because I'm actually just fascinated by the fact that you knew you were going to be a doctor. And I'm thinking, okay, so for a lot of young girls in particular, maybe that thought isn't, like, you knew it was possible for you right away, or you never had any doubts. And I'm wondering about where that confidence came from.
I think it was my grandmother, because my mother, when I used to go down south, my grandmother was from North Carolina, my grandparents, North Carolina. And my grandmother had said, I remember a conversation, you're not supposed to listen to adults talk because that's adult conversation.
Yeah.
But I remember my grandmother talking to my mother and saying, she's going to be a doctor one day. And my mother said, well, how do you know that? And she was like, look at the shape of her head. She's going to be a doctor. So I don't know what that had to do. I do not know. I still do not know.
That's what they call that mother wit or something like that, or some kind of
right. And so I don't know if it was a self-fulfilling prophecy, but from then on, it was like I was guided towards this path, I
Mm.
believe. And again, you know, my mother graduated high school, didn't get the chance to go to college. So I just was led that way. And it was like a light went off and I just kept moving forward. My mother and father always encouraged me, you know, education was number one in the household. You know, A's is what we expect. And that's it. And if you get a B, we need you to make it, you know, we need you to work hard and study because we know that you can do it. And that was reinforced to myself. That was reinforced to my sister over and over and over again. So as I progressed throughout school, A's. I did fortunately skip, you know, I went from pre-K to first grade. I didn't do kindergarten because of that constant reinforcement. My mother always had us doing extra work outside of homework. We always had homework. And I was fortunate enough, I went from 6th grade to 8th grade as well,
They just couldn't keep you still, huh?
So I kept moving forward because I always, you know, my mother and father always reinforced that you have to go over and beyond to be considered more than average. So by the time I graduated high school, I was 16. So at 16, I went to college and I wanted to go someplace not in New York. I wanted to go someplace because even though I was born and raised in Queens and I was around many different diverse cultures,
especially from
Astoria, that I
Astoria.
was in,
Yeah.
right. The school that I was in was predominantly Caucasian. And that is my elementary school as well as my high school. So at that point in time, I had been introduced slowly from friends who went to my high school, HBCUs. And I was introduced, also introduced to the D9. I didn't know anything about them as well. And it just was tutelage as to what was to come.
Let me just say something about D9, historically black colleges, historically black fraternities and sororities. Right. So now I'll give you a shout out to Delta Sigma Theta, that's your sorority that you eventually pledged. Okay. So you go ahead. You were saying.
So I went to Hampton, young, fresh faced, didn't know what to expect. And it gave me the experiences that I needed to grow as a person, to grow as, you know, they constantly reinforce, well, this is your dream. This is how you can get to where you need to be. And it was nice to be around like-minded people who had like-minded goals. And progressed through Hampton University, graduated, and I was fortunate enough to obtain a post-baccalaureate scholarship, which meant that I had to do 2 summers of extra activities, as well as 1 extra year of medical school. And then after that extra year, I would progress into the regular track and graduate University of Virginia Medical School within 4 years. And that's what I did.
And so before I ask you to back it up a little bit, you were at the point of when you were a senior at Hampton, looking at something to do with ophthalmology and environmental, something with the eyes, before you transitioned. Correct. So let's go. So threading that needle back, before you transitioned, you were going to be an ophthalmologist. So just going back to that story. And then, so you did this, you had a 1-year opportunity to do something as a senior, I believe. And so what happened?
So after I graduated, this was the year after I graduated, I went to University of Virginia and studied some extra classes, and still planning on ophthalmology. With this process, in order to win the scholarship, you had to still interview, you had to still jump through all the hoops that you would do to get to medical school. And I remember at the interviewer said to me, whoa, I see here, because you have to submit a personal statement. He said, I see here that you're interested in ophthalmology. I said, correct, I am. And he said, well, ophthalmology is a very tough residency to get into? And I said, correct. And he said, we have limited amount of residency programs. And I said, correct. And he said, don't you think that that would be a concern for you? And I appreciate more and more the confidence that going to the HBCU as well as my upbringing gave me. It allowed me to believe that I could achieve anything, that there is nothing that is outside of my reach. So I said to this interviewer, I said, yes, I understand, but they would just have to make room for me because I will be an ophthalmologist.
Come on.
And that was my plan.
So you thought.
That's so I thought.
Right.
So I thought.
Oh, but that's also important, right? You can change your mind.
Right. You can change your mind. So I went through my first year of medical school, and in medical school, you do lots of different courses, including anatomy. And it was in anatomy that I was less than thrilled or disheartened when I studied head and neck anatomy. I just had built it up to be so much. It wasn't what I thought it was. So I'll fast forward to third year. So first and second year of medical school is all books and learning your information, whereas third and fourth year is clinicals. So I remember the first rotation was family medicine, and it was a nice rotation, but it didn't make my heart beat. And then I did internal medicine, again, nice, but not making my heart excited. I did psychiatry, which was a thought at one point in time, but then I did obstetrics and gynecology. And the way our rotation was set up is as soon as I started the rotation, I was on call. And that first night, I walked in the door, and the attending physician, which is the physician who's in charge of all the residents and the staff, said, all right, we have a delivery in room so-and-so. It is a woman, it's her sixth baby. Have you ever seen a delivery before? I said, no, sir, I've never seen a delivery. Have you ever, have you ever read about one? No, sir. There's no, haven't been around babies, let alone anything to that effect. And he had me go in the room. I spoke to the mother and the father, and the mother was so wonderful. She was like, well, okay, so you can gown up and you can deliver my baby. I can deliver your baby. I've never done this before. And she was like, no, I'll talk you through. So as she was delivering her sixth baby, she was talking me through delivering her, telling me what to do. Now there was the doctor standing behind, the attending physician standing behind me, but she was telling me what to do. And I delivered the baby, and everybody was excited, and I'm crying. The father's not crying, the mother's not crying. I'm the most emotional person in the room. And from then on, just waking up at night to deliver a baby made me happy. And just studying for tests and preparing for the next lesson, it just brought me so much joy. And so from then on, I was hooked. Now, don't get me wrong. In your third year, you can go and experience other clinical rotations. And I did experience ophthalmology, but it just confirmed that OBGYN was for me. So that was a wonderful experience.
Talking to Dr. Tanya Paul, Auburn OBGYN, part of Auburn Community Hospital. Really listening to Dr. Paul and her journey and how she was just telling a story about her first baby. How many babies since that first? Do you have an estimate?
I would definitely say, I don't know, over I would say thousands, maybe, because it's been almost 20 years. No, wow. More. It's been 23 years of delivering babies. That's a long time. As an attending, not as even right. That's a long time.
So as you're preparing for this, the sciences, none of that was intimidating to you?
Yes, I truly, medical school was the hardest part for me. Coming up and my upbringing with always studying more, always doing extra credit, I did get in a pattern of just being used to take tests. Tests came easy to me. Just things that other people struggle with, SATs, all that came easier to me. Not bragging, but it was medical school that showed me you need to put your money where your mouth is. You need to study. This is not a game. And I would say medical school was the hardest 4 years. It definitely was. It definitely showed me who I was.
Let's shift for a second and talk about outcomes and things of that nature, and Black women and the healthcare needs of Black women in particular. What are you seeing in your area? Because obviously you take care of women.
I can definitely say it breaks my heart to see the maternal morbidity and mortality, especially in Central New York. And it is multifactorial. A lot of people want to place it purely on access to care. When access to care is important, don't get me wrong, but there's so many other factors. When your highest rate of morbidity and mortality are not among the underprivileged, it's more so among African American women who are college educated. And I think that's where we miss the boat. You know, we're constantly providing resources, and I'm not saying we don't need to. We definitely need resources for the underprivileged. We definitely need resources for those who are struggling with access to care. We need resources for those in regards to food deserts versus food oasis, in regards to education. But we still have not been able to explain why this segment of women who have all the access to care, who have the nutrition, who have the education, still are one of the highest rate of women that are dying in childbirth. We still have not been able to correct that statistic. And that's what's mostly disheartening in Central New York.
And so what about prevention, or what are the things that we can do to lower that risk?
Again, that's a very difficult question.
Right, because we think when it's like you said, these women have access to care, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we need to look at the causes, right? We need to look at it in general. We need to look at why are these women having these high rates? Is it because of racism in medicine? And it very well can be. I mean, we are America. We know how we started, right? And we know what we're dealing with now on a day-to-day basis. And medicine, just like any other profession, relies on people, and people inherently have bias. Whether we know it or not, we inherently have bias. The key is to try to identify and not deflect and not take it personal, but identify these bias and work together to eliminate. But you have to be willing to work together to eliminate these biases.
One of the things that I've understood is Black women and fibroids in particular. What can we say about that?
Well, fibroids are a benign growth, so about 99% of them are benign, right? And they're a smooth muscle tumor. They can be found in all races, all right? And they do have a genetic component, but 1 in 4 are seen in women of color. 1 in 4 women are affected in women of color, and 1 in 8 Caucasian women are affected by it. The difference is with fibroids is they tend to affect younger, how do I say it? They tend to affect African American women at a younger age, at an earlier age. So that's one component of it. The second component is we as women as a whole have started to have babies later on in life. All right. So with and again, this is multifactorial, with the long acting contraceptions, women are allowed other what's the word for it? Other opportunities. They progress further in their career. They may put off childbearing till later on, which allow these fibroids to grow. right? These fibroids grow. And then when it's time for childbearing, these fibroids are massive. The other component that affects African-American women is with the physicians, studies have shown that more African-American women tend to go towards hysterectomy, whether it's all that's being offered to them or they have been told that this is the best option. There are other options. There are other treatment modalities that are used to treat fibroids. And studies have shown that in African-American women that the choice is hysterectomy more often than not.
What are the
Now,
alternatives?
the question is that, right, so there are alternatives.
No, but answer your question. You were going to say, why is that what is the issue there?
Right, why is it? Is it because definitively as a group, when we talk to our sisters and mothers, they just say have a hysterectomy, or is it that's what's being offered? Or, it's hard to tease out exactly, but the information is out there. With patients that I have, I try to make sure they understand these are our options. It's not the type of physician I am. I don't dictate what you should do. I give you your options. I tell you the pros and cons, and then we come up with a decision together. It's never that Dr. Paul said you had to do this. These are our options, and this is what we could do. Now, the choice is up to you as to what you want to do.
And so what you want Black women in particular to know is that hysterectomy is not the only option. I guess
it's definitely not 100%. It's definitely not. And it's not, I have people who come to me who say, I'm ready for my hysterectomy now because family members have had hysterectomies, but it's not something that has to be done. In the past, that was the only option given to women, and there's so many other options now. So the key is find somebody you trust, a physician who you trust, who has your best interests at heart. And then you sit and have a conversation. And if you feel like that physician is not listening to you, or your needs are not being met, then by all means, get a second opinion. I'm happy if you get a second opinion, because at the end of the day, I need for you to be okay with whatever decision you have made. And that is the best decision for you at the time. Sorry.
No, that's good. I got one more. I'm going to wrap it up in one large question, but here we go.
Okay.
Black women experience higher rates and complications in pregnancy with the following, right? This is what we understand: hypertension, preeclampsia, higher cesarean rates, increased likelihood of preterm birth, etc. What, Dr. Paul, as we close, and we could talk for another hour, but
we can.
So we just have to have you back. But what are some factors you think? Let me rephrase that. That's too big a question. What are some keys to great maternal health that will lower the risk of all of these things? Whether it's, I don't know if we can say something can lower the risk of preeclampsia or hypertension during pregnancy, but what are some keys to reducing these risks and having a successful pregnancy and good maternal health?
Okay, so first you want to start with your base. You want to start with being healthy to begin with, right? So we talk about body mass index. We talk about just being at the best health that you can be. Your nutrition is important, okay? Preeclampsia and all the diseases of pregnancy tend to give you a snapshot or an idea of what is going to happen in your body later on in life. As we are older and having babies at a more mature age, your risk of these preeclampsia, diabetes, hypertension goes through the roof. You also want to pay attention to your family history. If you have a family history of high blood pressure, diabetes, you're at risk. So all these things we want to have checked and evaluated before we even look to getting pregnant. Okay, so if we know we're 50 pounds overweight, we want to try to reduce that. If we know we have bad habits, we want to try to reduce that. If we know our family history is such that there's high blood pressure, there's other connective tissue diseases such as lupus or other autoimmune diseases. We want to be aware of these things because all of these things put us at risk as we progress through our pregnancy. And again, as we mature, these things are more likely to present themselves. So the young lady who is 30, who's thinking about having a baby, who both her parents have high blood pressure, and she is 50 to 100 pounds overweight, she should consider becoming healthy, the best version of herself before she gets pregnant. The other thing is she wants to make sure she chooses a provider that's best for her and her partner. Chooses a provider that's best for her family, that she feels like she is being heard. Also, she wants to make sure not only the provider, but where is she delivering? What's the hospital statistics? What have they done to make sure or to ensure that the morbidity and mortality is decreased as opposed to increase? These are some of the things, and I've just scratched the surface.
And that means that we got to have you back and have you finish some of that stuff. Dr. Tanya Paul is with Auburn OBGYN, part of the Auburn Community Hospital, celebrating excellence here on Inspiration for the Nation. And Dr. Paul, we wish you well. How do people find you?
Well, they find me if they call Auburn OBGYN and they schedule an appointment.
And there you have it. Inspiration for the Nation, celebrating people we feel good about. Thank you, Dr. Paul.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.